about risk, you might think that risk isn't actually a sexy thing to do in HR. But it absolutely is. Like when we take this essence into a different level, you see that the magic is happening because you have prevented and you have enabled so much through HR as well. And Cinépolis, guys, like doing movies for a living or watching movies for a living cannot be the thing that you have wished for. So Cinépolis is a very proud Mexican brand present right now in 18 countries. So we're doing this right now in India and heading to Indonesia in 2 days. And being able to share one of the biggest brands across the globe from Mexico has been something that is touching my purpose. So I was originally born and raised in Poland, went to study to Germany, and then my professional journey actually started in Mexico. So being able to be in a Mexican company with international presence is like dream come true and bringing everything together in my life. Because as a CHRO, basically you talk and listen for a living. Mostly you listen and you try to enable your leaders to be the best as they can. So in order for me to be the best leader, I need to take a break, I need to take a moment, and usually I take the moment at the gym. And the rest of the day, I think it's quite bucketed into 3. One is being at the cinema, right? So I told you before that I love being in the cinema, saying hello to people, understanding their day-to-day activities, because I do believe that in any senior position, you have to be close to the core of the business. You need to understand what people is doing, what people is feeling. So then when you create those beautiful PowerPoints, it actually represents a solution to a problem in the day-to-day work. So my favorite movie is Toy Story, and I have watched that movie with myself many times, but also now I watch it with my kids. I watch it with my daughter. I watch it with my son, with my husband. We all watch it all together, and now we're watching with my nieces. And the more I understand the story of Toy Story, I always cry. I'm a super crier, right? So sometimes when Buzz Lightyear is falling from the shelf, sometimes I feel that this is actually happening to myself. But it's a beautiful story about how we need to share the values and the purpose beyond ourselves and beyond our generations. And this has such a powerful message that, children movies are always the ones that have the most meaningful message behind it. And I think Toy Story is something that, I could watch every single day. Right, that's an amazing question, and I think it's all about the values and how we bring them to life in every cinema that we open. And my boss's grandfather was the one who actually founded this company, and he was a biker. He loved to ride a bicycle, and they say that in Morelia, New Mexico, in that city, that he used to even ride the bicycle with his hands up. And he always said that life is like riding a bicycle. So you always have to move forward, but keeping the balance. And the way, and when you enter to any office of Cinépolis, you can see that on the walls everywhere. So I'm talking about more than 100 years of history, and this still continues to be the very first experience that we get when we join the company. And actually, I was taking plenty of pictures of that when I joined. But on the other hand, we bring this culture to the cinemas in the very same consistent way across the globe. So all the cinemas that we have globally, we have a moment on a yearly basis where we do cultural forums. That means that all the stuff from the cinema, this kind of the behind the scenes when customers are not here, we shut down the cinema for us, which is, super fun to have those cultural sessions, and we talk about culture, about our behaviors, about what do we want to achieve. And I think the consistency, because this is the very same presentation that we do in the cinema, that we do in Indonesia, that we do in Mexico, that we do in Spain. Because I think the consistency on how we think about the culture and how leaders bring it to life every day, it is the sweet spot, right? So doing this on a consistent basis with the very same messaging across the globe. It is an amazing question, and the role of the CHRO has evolved so much, fortunately, into something much more fun. And when I think about the balance, I think the balance is when the companies actually understand that the culture is part of the business strategy. This is where the magic happens. Because just imagine that I dedicate my life to people, right? Because this is my role. But guess what? Our customers are people. Whoever is providing the food, the beverage, who's producing the movie, is people as well. So I think the last discovery is that CHROs are experts on people, and this is part of the business strategy. There are, specifically in services and entertainment industry, this is the number one skill that you have to have. You need to make sure that we provide those excellent service to people. So I don't think that this is actually a balance. I think this is the one and only. And I always when I talk to the business, I explain that in the past, sometimes people said, Justy is the CHRO, but Justy is a mom. So you have to kind of leave your personal side at the house and then come to work. And I said, I cannot just divide myself into half and just switch off the fact that I am a mom, that that my husband needs something. It's about bringing those two together and then balancing what are the moments that matter. Specifically when you work globally, there is an additional component that you need to bring those cultural differences to life, and that the culture becomes actually the make or break of the successful implementation of a business in a country, as we did it here, right? So it's not about let's do here something, let's do something different. It's about bringing both into the same thing. Absolutely, and I would be surprised if there was no friction. And I think there is a term that I don't like, but it's useful, which is local, right? So it means it's global, but it's local at the same time. Because as much as I want to think that India would be open to have Mexican spicy food in the cinema, there is a cultural identity that you want to have your delicious local food in the cinema to enjoy it, right? So it's kind of bringing also the balance of, yes, we have to have popcorn because this is part of the journey, but I don't mind at all that we have all the delicious food from India serving our customers here as we do in other geographies. So kind of this local concept allows a beautiful global time frame and a beautiful strategy that we want to have. But at the same time, we're allowing for the local nuances, and there is a reason for it, because we put the customer in the center. So it's not what we want to sell; it's what people want to buy, and the way they enjoy it. So I am a huge fan of bringing any innovation into HR space. So AI, digitalization, new systems, new tools, because there are things that needs to be done in HR, and I much rather have our leaders use AI for stuff and then free up time to get creative, right? I am sure that there isn't any person in any company that has 5 hours of looking at a white piece of paper and thinking about the future. We we are always kind of catching up and in a rush, and operations kill us, and we try to solve things as quickly as we can. But if we have tools that are going to take care of the things that we need to do in HR or globally in any business, then we have some more free time for those meaningful, purposeful thoughts on how can I do better for my people? How can I be a better leader? How can I, look for another beautiful product that is going to be popcorn or something else? So I think this creative part will never be replaced by AI, and it has to, enable us to do the stuff that it doesn't, have much value, and then take a moment on something that we need to do for the future, or taking a moment for ourselves, right? I think as generations evolve, we also want to make sure that we have some time to say, what's my purpose? Am I actually happy? I spend so much time at work, and that like when the moment comes after 20, 30 years of experience, you want to say, I did good. I enjoyed myself. I've developed so many people. Like, you have to answer this question whether your purpose was met or not. And I think you have to be very intentional to ask the question, what is the purpose? Because if life comes to the end and then you ask yourself the question that you lost many years, and I have to share with you, like, I studied applied linguistics, and I studied it because of a little bit of pressure that I had at the moment, and I had someone around me who today is my husband, who told me, I don't think you're enjoying this. And I was very fortunate. I did spend 5 years studying it, which I absolutely appreciate. But I think, those blind spots was identified by someone close to me to say, this is not you. And I wasn't me, I wasn't Justy when I was doing the translation. I was very unhappy. And then when I started to work in HR, I started to breathe. And to breathe in a way that, wow, I want to go to work. I cannot wait till Monday and start, interacting with people. And I think, when you do what you love, it has like a very different purpose and impact on the people that you work with. And maybe, this energy is something that you start to see as contagious, and, making the world better at the end of the day. And you know what? Because we have one book of work for every single person joining Cinépolis. And that is something that not only do we train, this is the reason we hire people when it comes to our values, and we train them, and then making sure that this experience is exactly amazing across the board. So our managers at the cinemas, they are trained as well. We do audits to make sure that this is happening. We do some mystery shopping, because sometimes, we want to make sure that it's not only our understanding, but there are people that are outside of Cinépolis checking that. And this is the entire DNA. It has been like this for, since we can remember, since the very first cinema in Mexico. And I think, service is provided because we love what we do, right? We love what we do, and we have the very best products that aren't possible in the market. So it is a common passion across hiring, training, and review, performance. And so this is why we guarantee the success. Absolutely, and the industry, not only this one, but also consumer goods is evolving because the customer behavior is evolving. So we need to think about digital channels as something that is specifically post-pandemic, right? It is here. So 50% of our sales globally are done today in a digital way. 20% of every food and beverage that we sell is also sold through digital channels. So absolutely yes. And kiosks are coming to India very, very soon. We have them globally. And this is the best customer experience, right? Because you save time, you order everything that you want at home, and then just come and pick it up. So it's roles changing, to your question, roles changing, and how we even bring some areas together, how the investment in technology is present, and how we simplify the customer journey, right? So we want to make sure that the customer has as less steps as possible. So you can basically come, have your tickets handy, they just pick up the popcorn and go enjoy the movie, right? But there are some customers and generations that want this physical contact. So I think it's about providing, we've spoken about employee personalization, it's the same thing with the customer. So if you want to, if you're a millennial like myself and want to add, want to buy some popcorn and ticket on the digital channel, you're able to. And if you feel that you're not that proficient, when I think about my parents as an example, you have to have someone who's going to serve you here. And maybe, as the world evolves, we're going to have different solutions in the future as well. There is it's very difficult to be your authentic self because there are many things happening in your head that tells you different, and you can, I'm going to share some of mine, I has always worked with many, many men all my life. And sometimes, even today, or during this trip, I had my very first town hall at the office, and I had 30 minutes to be out there. And I said, there is something that as a woman, I really appreciate, which is get my hair done. And I was like, how am I going to manage it in 30 minutes? And then I said, I think it's not about the hair. It's not about me. It's about what you give, right? So I think when you change perspective and think about the benefit of everyone else, that this is what changes. But I think there is only one way to be your authentic self, which is risky, and it might not turn out well, which is being vulnerable. I was so nervous during that town hall. I told everyone, because I was sitting in the scenery and everyone was around there, and I didn't know anyone. It was the very first time in India for me, and I said, I feel very intimidated because everyone was standing around me, and I just put it out there. And people might say, whoa, she's a CHRO and she's saying that, she's not worth it. And then, all the voices that you have behind start to play, but then when you practice it, when you do it again and again and again, and it starts to has an impact of connecting to people, then you say it was absolutely worth it. So to me, I think I have gotten to the stage where I don't think about being authentic. When I start not to be authentic, then I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? What I am afraid of. So it's a little bit of, working on yourself, on your self-awareness. What is, the voice that you have behind, and what are you afraid of? And I think, the more we know ourselves, the better it gets. But sometimes, sometimes it didn't work out because I don't want to sound that, be vulnerable, talk about how bad you are and stuff, and life will be great. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's not so nice. So sometimes people say, oh, she isn't good. She isn't, worth it. But then, then you learn from it. And then you learn from it, and then I had a very tough situation when I was working with my previous employer. Someone extremely senior and tenured in the company was questioning one of my team members. And, if you know me, I'm like mommy lion, right? So I protect my team always. And I just couldn't stand that this person wasn't treating one of my direct reports very well. And that was, I think, week 3 at the new company. So, but I took the courage to stay with the person, provide the feedback. I was extremely nervous. But at the end of the day, I knew that I was doing the right thing. So sometimes, again, you put yourself out there and hope that this is going to end up well, but it didn't end up well. And that was a learning. So it didn't end up well that day. But after 2 weeks, I said, I don't like this conflict. I'm gonna reach out again. And then we spoke. And then the person became vulnerable, and we understood what was the problem, because it was not about my direct report. It was about a bad day, about the environment. So, and that connection that we built, you just cannot imagine. Best friends till this day, and always being kind of a sounding board. You have to have those people around you that kind of gives you the blind spots, the person who's going to have some time with you to go for lunch, or just the creative space. So what I'm trying to say to close out is that the diversity of people that you have around you is the best tool that you could ever have, right? So I always say to my managers, don't hire a mini-me, like don't hire a mini-you, because this is not going to work. You have to have those diverse perspectives around the table. So when you want to do something crazy, there is a person that is risk averse that is protecting you, or the other way around. So I always say, like, if I am not having the same answer for my direct reports at the same time, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job because I'm bringing those perspectives to the table. And this is what enriches any decision for the future.